And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Chapter 2. The Call in the Desert and the Trial in Egypt. The ancient world was filled with noise. In the prosperous cities of Mesopotamia, under the shadow of the great ziggurats and the smoke of altars dedicated to the gods of the moon and stars, humanity had forgotten the Creator. But in the midst of that bustling idolatry, in the city of Haran, a man heard a different voice. It was not the echo of the priests nor the clamor of the marketplaces. It was a voice that resonated in the deepest part of his spirit, clear, unmistakable, and sovereign. That man was Abram. He was no longer young. The years had marked his face, and his beautiful wife Sarai carried the silent pain of barrenness. They had built a comfortable life, surrounded by their kindred, their flocks, and their traditions. However, the voice that broke the silence of his everyday life demanded the greatest of sacrifices, to let it all go. Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, the Lord told him, unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. It was a promise of incomprehensible magnitude. God did not show him a map, did not give him earthly guarantees, nor did he explain the dangers of the road. He only asked for faith. And Abram, with 75 years on his shoulders, obeyed. The dismantling of his life in Haran must have been a spectacle for his neighbors. Striking the tents, gathering the vast herds of sheep and oxen, and preparing the servants for a journey with no known destination. Alongside him went his nephew Lot, a young man who saw in Abram a father figure after the death of his own father. Abram's caravan ventured into the wilderness, leaving behind known civilization, guided only by the invisible compass of the divine promise. The journey was long and exhausting. The dust of the road, the scorching sun, and the freezing desert nights bore witness to their trek until finally, their feet touched the land of Canaan. It was an inhabited territory, rugged and dominated by fierce peoples, the Canaanites. Upon arriving at the valley of Shechem, by the imposing oak of Moreh, Abram stopped. There, in a strange land surrounded by idol worshippers, the voice spoke to him again. Unto thy seed will I give this land, the Lord promised. In response, Abram did not build a fortress or claim a throne. He built an altar. He gathered rough stones and offered a sacrifice, marking that piece of foreign land with the seal of his faith. Then, he continued his pilgrimage southward, pitching his tent between Bethel and Ai, where he built another altar and called upon the name of his God. But Abram's faith would soon be tested in the harshest way possible. The promised land was not flowing with milk and honey at that moment. The skies closed, the pastures dried up, and a brutal, relentless famine struck the region of Canaan. The flocks grew thin, and the specter of starvation haunted the tents of his camp. Driven by desperation and the need to protect his family, Abram made a decision based on fear rather than faith. He directed his caravan south, toward the superpower of antiquity, the fertile valley of the Nile, Egypt. As they approached the monumental borders of Egypt, The majesty and might of the pharaonic empire filled the patriarch's heart with terror. Abram looked at Sarai. Despite her years, her beauty was dazzling, the kind that makes men lose their reason. The fear of Egyptian power overshadowed God's promise in Abram's mind. "Listen," he said to Sarai, his voice trembling. "I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, 'This is his wife,' and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee." It was a half-truth, for they shared the same father but a different mother. But in its essence it was a cowardly deceit, intended to save his own skin at the expense of his wife's safety. Just as Abram predicted, Sarai's beauty did not go unnoticed. Upon crossing the border, the princes of Egypt saw her and commended her beauty all the way to the very halls of Pharaoh's palace. The ruler of Egypt did not hesitate. He ordered Sarai to be taken into his harem. In exchange, and ignorant of the truth, Pharaoh showered his brother Abram with overwhelming wealth. Overnight, Abram's camp was filled with sheep, oxen, male donkeys, men servants, maidservants, female donkeys, and camels. Abram became immensely wealthy, but the price was heartbreaking. He sat in his tent surrounded by foreign luxuries while his wife, the woman who was to share the divine promise of a great nation, was a prisoner in the palace of a pagan king. The hero's fragility was exposed. Abram had failed. However, where man fails, God intervenes. The Lord was not going to allow his promise to be destroyed in the courts of Egypt. An invisible and terrible scourge fell upon Pharaoh and his entire house. Mysterious plagues and diseases ravaged the royal palace. Panic seized the court, until somehow Pharaoh discovered the terrifying truth. The woman he had taken was not single. She was the wife of a man protected by a powerful and fearsome God. Filled with wrath and terror, the Egyptian monarch summoned Abram. The scene in the throne room must have been incredibly tense. The most powerful man on earth facing the humble pilgrim. "What is this that thou hast done unto me?" Pharaoh roared, his voice echoing against the stone pillars. "Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, 'She is my sister,' allowing me to take her to me to wife? Now therefore behold thy wife. Take her, and go thy way." There was no punishment, no prison. The terror that God had instilled in Pharaoh was so great that all he wanted was for that man and his God to disappear from his territory. Pharaoh commanded his men to escort Abram, Sarai, and all their formidable, newly acquired wealth out of the borders of Egypt. Humiliated but protected by a grace he did not deserve, Abram began the journey back. He went up out of the arid Egypt toward the Negev, carrying with him a lesson burned into his soul. Faith is not a path without stumbling blocks, and God's promises do not depend on the perfection of man, but on the unwavering faithfulness of the Creator. The pilgrim returned to the desert richer, wiser, and ready to return to the altar he had built at the beginning, to call upon the name of the Lord once again. Chapter 3: Parting Ways and the War of the Kings. The return from Egypt was not the end of the trials, but the beginning of a new challenge. Abram and his nephew Lot returned to the Negev, and from there to the altar they had built between Bethel and Ai. Their caravans were no longer those of simple nomads. They were now immense. Pharaoh had sent them away with such an abundance of sheep, cattle, silver, and gold, that the very ground they walked on could barely sustain them. Wealth, however, often brings with it the seed of discord. The Canaanite land was harsh, and the pastures and water wells were not enough to feed the gigantic herds of both men. Soon, shouts broke the peace of the camp. Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen began to fight over resources. The atmosphere grew tense, and to make matters worse, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, fierce and hostile peoples, watched this internal division from the hills, ready to attack at the slightest sign of weakness. Abram, demonstrating the wisdom of a patriarch and a peacemaking heart, called his nephew. "Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee," he said with a firm yet affectionate voice, "and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me, If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right, or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left." It was an extraordinary offer. In the culture of the time, the elder had the absolute right to choose first. But Abram, trusting that God would provide for him no matter where he was, yielded that right. Lot lifted up his eyes. Before him lay the plain of the Jordan River, a green, fertile valley well-watered everywhere. In the eyes of the young man, that place looked like the Garden of Eden, or the rich lands of Egypt they had just left. Blinded by material ambition, Lot chose the plain and journeyed east, pitching his tents as far as the gates of a city infamous for its immense wickedness, Sodom. Abram remained in the arid land of Canaan, but in that solitude, the voice of God echoed once more to comfort him. The Lord asked him to look north and south, east and west. All the land his eyes could encompass would be his and his descendants forever. Renewed in his faith, Abram moved his camp and settled by the great oaks of Mamre in Hebron, where he built a new altar. Years passed, and the peace of the Jordan Valley was shattered. 4 powerful kings from the east, led by the fearsome Chedorlaomer, formed an alliance to crush the rebellion of 5 local kings, among them the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah. The pitched battle was unleashed in the valley of Siddim. It was a massacre. The kings of Sodom and Gomorrah were defeated and fled, many of their men falling into the treacherous tar pits that filled the valley. The invading armies sacked Sodom, taking all its wealth, its provisions, and its inhabitants as slaves. Among the captives, chained and stripped of everything he had ambitioned for, was Lot. One survivor managed to escape the slaughter and ran desperately to the oaks of Mamre to bring the news to Abram the Hebrew. Upon hearing that his nephew had been taken captive, Abram did not hesitate. The man of peace transformed into a military warlord. He quickly armed 318 trained servants born in his own house, men he trusted implicitly, and went in pursuit of the 4 victorious armies. Under the cover of night, Abram divided his men and fell upon the enemy camp like a storm of vengeance. The surprise attack shattered the defenses of the eastern kings. Abram pursued them mercilessly beyond Damascus, recovering every last piece of loot, rescuing the women, the people, and breaking Lot's chains. The journey back was a parade of triumph. As they approached the king's valley, 2 figures came out to meet him, representing 2 opposing paths. On one side, the king of Sodom, humiliated and desperate, who offered Abram all the recovered wealth in exchange for the people. On the other side appeared a man wrapped in mystery, Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of the Most High God. He brought no weapons or demands, but bread and wine. Melchizedek raised his hands and blessed the patriarch. "Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand." Deeply moved by this revelation that God was worshipped beyond his own tent, Abram gave Melchizedek a tithe of all the spoils. Then Abram turned to the king of Sodom. The corrupt monarch expected the Hebrew to accept his gold, but Abram's faith was no longer the same as the one that trembled in Egypt. He now knew who his true shield was. "I have lift up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God," Abram declared with unshakable authority, "that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich." Abram returned to his oaks in Hebron, not with wagons full of Sodom's gold, but with a clear conscience and the promise of God burning brighter than ever in his heart. Chapter 4. The Covenant of the Stars and the Birth of Ishmael. Following the victory over the eastern kings, silence returned to Abram's tent. But in the stillness of the night, the echo of the battle and the weight of his own mortality began to torment him. Despite the riches and military triumph, there was an emptiness in his chest. It was then, amidst that uncertainty, that the word of the Lord came unto him in a vision. "Fear not, Abram. I am thy shield, and thy exceeding great reward." But the patriarch, weary of waiting, answered with his heart in his hand, "Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus? Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir." God's response was not a rebuke, but an invitation. He brought him forth abroad and pointed to the vast dark canvas of the night, sprinkled with countless twinkling lights. Look now toward heaven and tell the stars if thou be able to number them. So shall thy seed be. And in that moment, beneath the starry firmament of Hebron, something extraordinary happened. Abram, a childless old man, decided to believe God, and that pure, naked faith was counted unto him for righteousness. To seal this promise, God ordered him to prepare an ancient and solemn covenant ritual. Abram brought a heifer of 3 years old, a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, along with a turtle dove and a young pigeon. He divided the large animals in the midst and laid each piece one against another, creating a pathway of blood. All day long, Abram drove away the fowls of the air that came down upon the carcasses, protecting the sacrifice. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep accompanied by a horror of great darkness fell upon Abram. In that trance, God revealed the future to him. His seed would be a stranger in a land that was not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. But the nation whom they serve would be judged, and afterward they would come out with great substance to claim the promised land. When the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. It was the very presence of God, passing alone through the corridor of blood, taking upon himself the entire burden and responsibility of fulfilling the covenant. However, the years continued to pass. Abram's faith was strong, but Sarai's patience had run out. Seeing that the Lord had restrained her from bearing, she took the reins of her own destiny. Sarai resorted to a custom of the time and gave her Egyptian handmaid Hagar to Abram, that she might obtain children by her. Hagar quickly conceived, but when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Resentment poisoned the camp. Sarai, filled with bitterness and jealousy, blamed Abram and dealt so hardly with Hagar that the handmaid could not endure it. Desperate and pregnant, Hagar fled into the unforgiving wilderness. There, by a fountain of water in the middle of nowhere, exhausted and alone, she was found, but not by her masters, by the angel of the Lord. Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? He asked. I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai, she answered through her tears. The angel gave her a difficult instruction, but accompanied it with an immense promise. Return to thy mistress and submit thyself under her hands. I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. Hagar, amazed that the God of the universe would notice a simple foreign slave, called the name of the Lord that spake unto her. Thou God seest me. With a comforted heart, Hagar returned to the camp in the oaks of Mamre. Sometime later she bare Abram a son, and Abram, who was then 86 years old, called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. The covenant of the stars was sealed, but the family story was just beginning to complicate. Chapter 5. The promise, the laughter, and the fire. 13 years of silence passed over the camp at Mamre. Ishmael grew strong, but the original promise seemed suspended in time. Abram was now 99 years old. His body and Sarai's were, for all intents and purposes, barren ground where life could no longer spring forth. But when all human hope fades, that is when God intervenes with greatest glory. The Lord appeared again and declared his name. I am the Almighty God. Walk before me, and be thou perfect. On that day, the destiny of humanity changed. God sealed his covenant with a new name. He would no longer be Abram, exalted father, but Abraham, father of a multitude of nations, and his wife would no longer be Sarai, but Sarah, princess. The Lord commanded him to institute circumcision as the physical token of the covenant, and gave him the news that defied all logic. Sarah, at 90 years old, would bear a son, and his name would be Isaac. Abraham fell upon his face, and in the intimacy of his heart he laughed out of sheer disbelief. A short time later, In the suffocating heat of the day, Abraham sat in the tent door under the great oaks. Lifting up his eyes, he saw 3 men standing by him. There was something supernatural in their presence. With legendary desert hospitality, the old man ran to meet them, bowing himself toward the ground. He had water brought to wash their feet, ordered Sarah to make ready fine meal and bake cakes upon the hearth, and had a choice calf prepared from the herd. While the strangers ate under the shade of the tree, one of them, speaking with the very authority of the Lord, asked the question, "Where is Sarah thy wife?" "Behold, in the tent," Abraham answered. "I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son." Sarah was listening, hidden behind the tent door. Hearing this, she looked at her withered body and laughed within herself. "After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also?" she thought. But nothing is hidden from the eyes of the Lord. Wherefore did Sarah laugh? The divine voice asked. "Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee, and Sarah shall have a son." Sarah, filled with fear, tried to deny it. "I laughed not," but he decreed. "Nay, but thou didst laugh." The meal finished, the men rose up and looked toward the steep valley of the Jordan, toward the city of Sodom. The Lord decided not to hide from his servant what he was about to do. The cry against the wickedness of Sodom and Gomorrah had reached heaven, and judgment was imminent. Abraham, remembering that his nephew Lot lived in that cursed city, drew near with fear and trembling, beginning the most astonishing negotiation in history. "Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked?" he asked. "Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right?" God agreed to spare the city for 50. Abraham, knowing the rod of the place, kept lowering the number, pleading for mercy, for 45, for 30, for 20, until he reached 10. "I will not destroy it for 10's sake," the Lord promised before departing. But in Sodom there were not even 10 righteous. At evening, 2 of the angels came to the gates of Sodom. Lot, sitting in the gate of the city, recognized them as strangers, and pressing upon them greatly, took them into his house to protect them. However, before they lay down, the darkness of Sodom was unleashed. The men of the city, both old and young, compassed the house round, beating furiously at the door, demanding that Lot bring the visitors out so they might abuse them. The depravity was absolute. Lot went out and shut the door after him, begging them not to do so wickedly, even going to the desperate extreme of offering his own daughters to save his guests. But the crazed mob pressed sore upon him. In that instant the angels opened the door, pulled Lot into the house, and smote the men that were at the door with blindness, leaving them wearying themselves to find the door in the dark. Time was up. The angels looked at Lot with urgency. "Hast thou here any besides? Son-in-law and thy sons and thy daughters, bring them out of this place, for we will destroy this place. The Lord hath sent us to destroy it." Lot ran to warn his sons-in-law, but he seemed as one that mocked unto them. When the morning arose, the angels had to hasten Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters almost by force, laying hold upon their hands, because Lot still lingered. "Escape for thy life," the angel shouted. "Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed." The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered the small city of Zoar, and then the heavens opened. It did not rain water, but brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. A deafening roar shook the valley. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, with all their inhabitants and that which grew upon the ground, were overthrown in an instant, turned into a furnace of black smoke and ash. But in the flight, Lot's wife made a fatal mistake. Disobeying the divine command, and with her heart still clinging to the life and luxury she was leaving behind, she looked back from behind him toward the burning city. In that very instant, judgment caught her, and she was petrified forever, turned into a solitary pillar of salt beneath the red-stained sky. The next morning Abraham got up early and looked toward the valley. He beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. God had destroyed the cities, but, remembering Abraham, he had sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow.